I'm recording.
I did it.
Did we do 3?
Yeah, we did 3.
Yes. Okay, cool.
It's always like such a freaking rush.
I know. My pulse is racing.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of a rush, we had some people respond to an Instagram story that we posted forever ago of like, hey guys, if you have a cool, interesting story, you should share it with us. And so I decided to start off this episode. I'd read one. So this is from Svet Maria 10206 on Instagram. And her story happened in 2006. And I'm going to read what she wrote. I woke up at about 3 a.m. because my baby daughter, 5 months old, was crying. She probably wanted something to eat or to drink. I was exhausted and was half awoken, half asleep. And then I saw the door opening and a figure, I thought it was my mom, coming in. The figure came up to my baby's bed, shook it for a while till my baby fell asleep and went away. It all was done without any sound, just if someone muted all the world around. I remember I wasn't worried or scared of anything, like kinda I had known the figure person. 5 or so minutes later, my mom came into our room, asked me if I wanted her to help with my daughter, to look after her while I would be sleeping. And it was the strangest thing because if it was her, I meant my mom, she had come to shake the bed, she would have taken her granddaughter with her right away. The question is still in the air. Who was that person? When I asked my mom if she had come in before, she replied, no. Da-na-na-na.
Ooh, that's creepy.
Whoever
That's
it
so
is.
cool that someone put their
Yeah.
story in to us.
Yeah, whoever it was, it seems like they're a friendly ghost that's like, I'm gonna help this person out. Don't worry, baby. Go back to bed. You know?
Or fucking go back to sleep. Fucking go back to sleep.
That's
Oh, that's so cool.
cool.
And spooky. Spooky.
And before we get started too, I just wanted to remind everyone that you have a chance at getting a free sticker if you leave an Apple Podcast review. Take a screenshot of it before you submit it and send that screenshot to whofkenknows@gmail.com with the address that you would like the sticker to be sent to. I have my Hydro Flask here with the sticker on it. If you can see that, let me just boop.
It's
Cool.
so fucking cool.
Yeah, so that's the Sasquatch one. We're still waiting for more Sasquatch and some alien stickers, but either way, they're going to be here in less than a week, so do that.
And we are also posting hints on our Instagram about our stories. And if you can guess correctly first in the comments below the posting, you can also win a free sticker. We already have sent 2 soon because we're still waiting for them to come in. But 2 people have guessed it right. Woo!
They're gonna get stickers.
Yes. So we all know you want a sticker too. Woo!
You know you want a sticker. They're pretty cool.
All right.
Yeah.
Shall I do it?
Mm-hmm.
Do it.
You know your life is just a dream, don't you?
Welcome to Who Fucking Knows, a podcast where 3 friends, a blonde, a brunette, and a redhead, discuss conspiracy theories, murder mysteries, and unknown phenomena that make you think, who fucking knows what happened? My name is Angela.
I'm Taylor.
I'm Lexy.
Guys, I have a special guest that I didn't tell you about.
Wait, what?
What? Is it Nova?
No,
Oh.
it's
I was like, what is that fucking thing you're grabbing?
Is that a tiny naked baby?
It's a little E.T. I was like, oh, I have an E.T. stuffed animal. So
Oh, I love
it's gonna
it.
pop him
That's
back
so
there.
cute.
I have a
So
confession.
Angela.
I've never seen the movie.
What? That was like one of my favorite movies as a kid.
Taylor, you are fired from the podcast. Just kidding.
Hey, my
We
affinity
did
was for
nothing
like
without you.
murder and
That's okay. Fair enough.
forensic
You
files.
should watch it. It's good. I mean, it's if you watch it now, you'd probably be like, this is kind of outdated, but it's a classic.
It's
Yeah,
a
I mean,
classic.
the special effects aren't really on point, but the story, it's deep
so
shit,
good.
you know?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I have something fun. So James wanted to up my computer game system, whatever, to do all of this good stuff because he's all techie. And plus he wants to use a computer too. It's not all just me, but I like to think it's just me. Anyway, he got a new nice monitor that doesn't have a camera yet, so I might not be looking at the camera when I'm reading my notes because it's on the bigger screen that I can read it without my glasses or contacts or anything. But I'm going to make a drinking game out of something for us because the bigger screen, it's connected by an HDMI cable, and it sometimes just goes black. So whenever it goes black, we take a drink.
Okay, I like it.
All right, cool.
While I'm using that screen. So if you want to drink along with us, please do. Not while you're driving, but, all the other scenarios you might find yourself in.
That's funny.
Yep.
I also had the idea of a drinking game the other day because I was listening to our most recent episode, and in it, Taylor's like, oh, we'll post our episode on Thursday, and both Angela and I are like, it's Wednesday. And then in our group text this week, Taylor's like, so when the episode posts Thursday, and we're like, Wednesday. So every time Taylor says a wrong day of the episode being posted.
Drink. This week, I made a concoction because I went to the grocery store, and I always go with a list and like a plan of what I want to eat for the week and everything like that. And it usually all goes out the door because I like just walking around and going, that looks good. Oh, that looks good. Well, I came across Pog juice. Like, legit Pog juice. And I came across Pog concentrate. Well, not Pog, excuse me, guava concentrate. So I have for today a margarita. It is a little bit of lime juice, a lot of tequila, and a whole lot more of the concentrate with a little bit of simple syrup. And I already looked up off all the salt because that's the type of person that I am. It's really tasty and it's
yummy.
So you know what Taylor does when she's on drink of any number other than one.
Well, dang.
Pog margarita.
Next time we see each other, you should make, or next time I'm there, you should make that for us.
Dude, I'm gonna make a whole repertoire of drinks. You just wait.
Yes.
Oh, we should name it. Give it a creepy name. Go. On the spot.
On the spot.
Bloody.
What do you feel?
I don't know. Blood something another. Murder.
Blood something another. Perfect.
Cheers.
I'll take a blood something another, please.
Alrighty, what are you fucking bitches drinking?
I'm having ponche again. Now I'm starting to get a little tired of it. It's
another week, another ponche.
Yeah, this time it's still my uncle's ponche. And I didn't have ice in the freezer, so I put a popsicle in it. But the popsicle has melted. It was a strawberry popsicle, but my drink is now cold, so it served its purpose.
That's awesome. I'm drinking a Burr. It's one of my favorite beers, and I have the can here because it's really fun, and I love the name. It's called Disco Ninja by Revision, and I really like.
It looked like a little alien on there because of the guy's afro.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, alien? No.
He's a disco ninja. So,
do you remember the little, like, alien digital video of I Will Survive that, I know Mr. Cox played it in the beginning of physics class.
Yes.
And it's like, I will survive, a little dancing alien.
I do remember
that. And then
that.
the disco ball, like, lands on top of it.
Yes, and it squishes him, and he doesn't survive.
No. That was supposed to be motivational for physics class.
Yeah,
people.
and we're like, okay, we're gonna die.
Anyway, Lexy, do you have a current event for us this week?
I do. Hang on, let me pull it up. So this article was texted to me by one of my old coworkers, Kevin. And I was like, wow, this is really crazy. I'm like, oh, this will be perfect for my current event this week because I was totally thinking ahead and I knew it was my week to do a current event. That's a lie. I texted you guys like 10 minutes before recording. I'm like, is it my week? It was like, yes. I'm like, oh, well, I have the perfect article. All right. So the title of this article is 750 million genetically engineered mosquitoes approved for release in the Florida Keys. So basically, as you know, like mosquito-borne illnesses and viruses are kind of a huge public health issue. And one of the ways scientists and different people trying to combat these issues are hoping to fix the problem is to genetically modify mosquitoes. One of the ways they've been doing it is making them sterile so they're unable to breed. But these mosquitoes that are being released in Florida are genetically engineered, and they're calling it like a killer gene. So they're engineered to kill the female mosquitoes, which is really interesting. And also like, what the fuck, you sexist scientist.
Okay, are like the female mosquitoes the only ones able to reproduce?
Well, yeah, because females, you need a male and a female mosquito to make more mosquitoes, as most things in the animal kingdom. So it's like all the male mosquitoes will just be left and they can't reproduce with each other. So eventually the idea is that they'll die out. But I just think it's really kind of creepy, but also it's exciting, but it's also kind of scary. Like, we've engineered an organism to have a killer gene, and it just kind of raises a lot of weird, I guess, like ethical issues. And
isn't that,
but at the same time,
continue.
So what were you gonna say?
Isn't that like bad for the environment, like the ecosystem? Like, what does the mosquito?
I know, and that's something I've thought about too. Like, what role the mosquito plays in the ecosystem. And that article doesn't really touch on that, so I don't have the answers for you.
Shit.
But at the same time, like, there'll still be mosquitoes for a while, but hopefully it'll decrease the amount of mosquitoes. But people in Florida are kind of pissed about it. They're like, we don't want your killer bugs out here and genetically modified bugs. But I don't know, as someone who is in like science, or was in science and in public health, like, it's kind of exciting, but at the same time it's like, I don't know, kind of unsettling. Like, do you get an unsettling feeling when I tell you they're like killer mosquitoes?
Well, like
genetically modified.
The first thing that pops in my head was, I want to be the one that kills the last mosquito. Like, bam, was that the last one? I don't know. Like, that's what popped in my head. Sorry, single-minded track there.
I think that's kind of unsettling. I think that's, I don't know, it's cool, but very unsettling, and also concerns me when it comes to the ecosystem, because everyone's like, save the bees, but is it going to turn into save the mosquitoes, because we created these little killers.
I know.
And
yeah, so it's, I don't know, it's interesting.
It's crazy. That kind of also,
but maybe it'll solve mosquito-borne illnesses like Zika or like dengue fever and things like that.
That's true.
That would be nice. How likely, though? Because, like, my just automatic go-to is doomsday. And so if we already are kind of in a doomsday era at the moment. So if we introduce killer mosquitoes, that's just the next chapter, man.
I know. Killer mosquitoes. What was it? The murder hornet?
Yes.
Coronavirus. Yeah, it's just been a crazy year. So who fucking knows what'll happen with those genetically engineered killer mosquitoes.
Yep.
Hopefully it'll be good things, but I don't know.
Maybe one day we'll have an update. We'll see.
Only time will tell.
Yeah, maybe.
We'll be like,
oh my god, Florida's a shit show.
What's new?
Like, the mosquitoes are retaliating. I repeat, the mosquitoes are retaliating.
The mosquitoes are killing people.
Angela, what are you talking about this week?
Oh, well, I'm just gonna jump right into it.
Okay,
so, after the voyages of Christopher Columbus in 1492, the Spanish and later Portuguese, English, French, and Dutch rat raced to claim lands and resources. Some significant problems developed out of how this situation was handled, not the least of which was the fact that there were already people on these lands, but there was also mass chaos and war. Fast forward half a century, and the same situation might be beginning to play itself out again, but this time with a sci-fi spin. So there are valuable resources on the moon, and the most powerful countries on the earth are rushing to the moon in order to mine them. So I think it's funny that you're like 2020, man, because it's like 2020 weird shit is happening, and this is one of them. So before I get into this year, I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of history first. So in 1967, the Outer Space Treaty entered into force, forming the basis of international space law. Among the Outer Space Treaty's main points were that it prohibits the placing of nuclear weapons in space. Cool. I can't disagree with that. Limits the use of the moon and all other celestial bodies to peaceful purposes only, and establishes that space shall be free for exploration and use by all nations, but that no nation may claim sovereignty of outer space or any celestial body. So as of June 2020, 110 countries are parties to the treaty, while another 23 have signed the treaty but have not completed ratification. But there has been an ongoing debate regarding the full meaning and implications of this treaty. Specifically, in Article 2, the treaty reads, "Outer space, including the moon and other celestial bodies, is not subject to national appropriation by claim of sovereignty, by means of use or occupation, or by any other means." So the language seems to be nodding at national ownership, aka the United States can't be like, boom, we got the moon, it's our territory now, it's like part of our nation. So because of this, yeah, I don't know who would do that.
We would.
Yeah. But so there has never been a legal consensus on whether or not the treaty's prohibitions apply to private appropriation as well. So so there's a bunch of blurred lines. And in 1968, there was a series of UN-sponsored conferences intending to create an international framework of laws to guide humanity's use of outer space resources and to clear up the ambiguous language. However, the efforts failed, and more debates and negotiations have followed. So that was in 1967, 1968. Do you guys remember what happened in 1969?
Did we go to the moon?
We went to the moon. So,
Woo! Like,
point one for Taylor.
What is the most likely answer?
Yeah, Taylor gets a sticker. No, just kidding. So, the United States Apollo 11 was the first crewed mission to land on the moon on July 20th, 1969. There were 6 crewed U.S. landings between 1969 and 1972, and numerous uncrewed landings, with no soft landings happening between August 22nd, 1976 and December 14th, 2013. So what soft landings is, it's saying that they returned from their mission or landed on the moon without damaging the craft. So if it's a hard landing, then it fucked up, hit the surface too hard, and yeah, shit didn't work.
We have a problem.
Yes. So obviously when this happened, the headlines went crazy because there was a man on the moon. We did it. But what the headlines seem to have failed to emphasize is what value the moon held. And based on the next treaty, there certainly was value there. So after the 1967 treaty was formed and there was a bunch of ambiguity, the negotiations and debates kind of became even more debatey, I guess, because now we're on the moon. And it took a decade, but after 10 years of negotiations, the Moon Treaty was created in 1979. So it was an attempt to create a framework of laws and detailed procedures. So the Moon Treaty makes a declaration that the moon should be used for the benefit of all states and all people in the international community. It reiterates that lunar resources are not subject to national appropriation by claim of sovereignty by means of use or occupation, or by any other means. It also expresses a desire to prevent the moon from becoming a source of international conflict so that the resources should be used exclusively for peaceful purposes. So the treaty has a lot of different points, but I'm going to focus on the ones that regard mining. So it provides a framework of laws to establish an international cooperation regime, including appropriate procedures to govern the responsible exploitation of natural resources of the moon. It bans altering the environmental balance of celestial bodies and requires that the states take measure to prevent accidental contamination of the environments of celestial bodies, including Earth, and the orderly and safe use of natural lunar resources with an equitable sharing by all state parties in the benefits derived from those resources. And then also, the placement of personnel or equipment on or below the surface shall not create a right of ownership. So this treaty kind of just flat out failed. It was not ratified by most parties, and it was ratified by few countries, and most of the countries that did ratify it didn't even have a spaceflight program. The only company that did have a spaceflight compatibilities that ratified it was India. And what that means is that the United States, which is the only country to have successfully conducted a crewed mission to the moon, did not sign said treaty. And now let's go back to more modern day and like what this all means and what this has to do with anything. Okay. So in 2015, the Obama administration signed the U.S. Commercial Space Launch Competitiveness Act into law. So the bill was intended to facilitate a pro-growth environment for the developing commercial space industry by making it legal for American companies and citizens to own and sell resources that they extracted from asteroid and off-world locations, so like the moon or Mars. So that kind of raised a little question as to whether or not it was contradicting the original 1967 treaty because of that ambiguous language that kind of made it seem like, hey, no one can own anything, but they want to like commercially own it. So this whole thing, I guess the reason why they passed this bill was kind of to incentivize like space travel and space exploration and mining, because if a company, like a private company like SpaceX, were to go and mine some asteroids and find a gold mine in an asteroid, then they get that benefit. And it's like, so it's kind of like that. So in 2020, on April 6th, the Trump administration kind of took it one step further, and they signed an executive order that formally recognizes the right of private interests to claim resources in space. So the new executive order makes things even more official, and it stresses that the United States does not view space as a global commons and sees a clear path to off-Earth mining without the need for further international treaty-level agreements. So the executive order called the Encouraging International Support for the Recovery and Use of Space Resources has been in the works for about a year now. The order was prompted by a desire to clarify the United States position as it negotiates with international partners to help advance NASA's Artemis program for crewed lunar exploration in 2024 and to create a sustainable human presence on the moon by 2028. So pretty much, NASA is planning to go to the moon, and they're trying to get international support.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so they're trying to get international support, and to kind of further their claim of getting international support, they're passing this law to be like, we have the right to mine, and if we go up there and find something and you're in on this project, then you get a little piece of the pie too.
Okay.
So they're trying to kind of set that in motion, right?
What could be up there?
Yeah. So NASA Administrator Jim Brinsting is tirelessly forming an international coalition to support the Artemis return to the moon program. So far we have Japan support. They signed this is funny. They signed a Joint Exploration Declaration of Intent, acronym JEDI. I don't know. I laughed at that.
That's funny.
So other countries being wooed as part of the Artemis coalition include Canada, member of the states of the European Union, Great Britain, Israel, India, and Australia. So Russia, being a senior partner with the United States in the International Space Station, would be a natural partner for Artemis. However, it looks like Russia, in a apparent fit of pique, has decided to exclude itself in the effort to return to the moon.
They don't want to go back.
No, according to Ars Technica, which is the Russian space chief, or according to Ars Technica, Russian space chief Dmitry Rogozin was quite caustic about the idea of Russia join the Artemis coalition, describing the US's mission to get back to the moon as a political project and one that resembled NATO. Rogozin would prefer that Russia join with China as a space partner, who, by the way, on January 3rd, 2019, actually landed the first spacecraft on the far side of the moon. So it's like, to me, I don't know, as like a US citizen, I'm always thinking like Russia and China don't really like us. And now they're I'm like, and now they're like partnering together to go to the moon. And so
Concerning, maybe.
So you might be wondering by now, what the hell is on the moon that everyone wants? Like, why is everyone going towards the moon? So first of all, the most boring thing, but is still kind of exciting, is that there's water on the moon. So that's cool because it can help to create a sustainable environment for humans beyond Earth. So if we were to set up something on the moon, then we got water. That's like the main thing we need.
We don't have air, but we have water.
Mm-hmm. And that water can also be converted to rocket fuel. So that's cool.
Ooh,
and
that's really cool.
Can I drink that? Do I feel safe drinking that? Like, oh my god, if that could be rocket fuel, I have way too many concerns there.
Shots.
And then
No.
the next thing that could be found there is helium-3, which is a rare element sought for future energy sectors like nuclear fusion. So I think that's like the options here are getting kind of more interesting because, I don't know, nothing against water, but helium-3 sounds a little cooler. And finally, to me, the most mind-blowing thing that's on there are REMs, which are rare earth metals. And these rare earth metals are used for modern electronics. And here, I'm going to pop up a little thing very quick on OBS. So these REMs are vital to emerging technologies. So they're in smartphones, computers, and medical equipment. And what's kind of scary is that 90% of the world's rare earth metal supply is in China. And China has about 15 to 20 years left in its reserves. So if we're in a modern day and age where we really rely on all this technology and we're constantly innovating it and we're constantly making new things, and we're trying to recycle, but we haven't really got complete hang of that, and there's only 15 to 20 years left of this stuff, that's concerning. So that's probably why they're rushing to the moon. And before I end this story, though, I'm gonna end with a thought that kind of entered my mind as I was learning about this. So the US is willing to invest millions of dollars on a project in optimistic hope to mine the moon, though supposedly we haven't been back to the moon since 1972. And sure, we have different rock samples from 50 years ago, but I don't know if that would be enough solid evidence to justify such an investment to an excursion like that. And it's, I don't know, so that kind of irks me in a way where I'm like, hey, has the US been there or been sending more stuff there, getting more samples somehow back to the Earth since the Apollo missions that we just don't know about? Or maybe we're just in serious dire needs of these rare earth metals that they're like, fuck it, we gotta try. Like, if everyone else is trying, like, we gotta do this.
Get on that.
So so who fucking knows what's going on there? But I thought it was kind of crazy that they're signing executive orders to mine the moon, and I didn't really even hear about it until the reason why I came up with the story is Bright Insight covered it, and he talked a little bit more about other stuff. He's on YouTube, and when he covered it like a couple weeks ago, I was like, what the fuck? I didn't know we're mining the moon. And I think coronavirus.
What the hell? I didn't either.
So I think
at this time,
I think they're using, I don't know, like the news is focused so much on like coronavirus and then the Black Lives Matter movement that there's so much stuff going on yeah, there's like so much stuff going on in the background that's just kind of being like brushed by, including the UFOs. Just saying.
You could almost say that that's how society is. Like, especially since we're thinking that they've probably been up there gathering some type of evidence in order to have, like, this investment to go public type of thing, because they don't want it to blow in their face and it's like, oh, there's nothing up here, you know? Like, I don't think that's a likelihood, and it's so... Maybe it's just always been just underneath the surface because we're just always clouded by so many other things that they deem more important for us to know or wanting to distract us with.
No.
Yeah.
Yep.
Distract us.
Good fucking story.
That was cool.
Good fucking story.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it.
I want
Dropping some knowledge. Yeah.
I want a moon rock to join my collection of random things on my desk.
Yes, me too. Ugh, I would love a moon rock.
By the way, next week I have another story about the moon, because this topic, like, there's other things. I don't know, the moon is just so freaking crazy. I love it.
Yeah.
And powerful.
Yeah.
The other day was a new moon.
Ah.
So that was a time to like set intentions and manifest it.
You little witch. This
Part of me becoming a witch.
Oh, okay. Another thing that came to mind when I was learning about this is, okay, if mining has had such a horrible impact on the Earth's environment, who is to say that we're not going to fuck up the moon somehow and then, like,
fuck up our water.
Fuck up our water.
Undoubtedly
everything.
going to fuck up the moon. And it's just...
If we start
we
mining
are as a
it,
species.
like changing the weight of the moon, the density, I don't know. That just doesn't sound right.
It'll crash into Earth and then...
Yo, aliens watching
We'll get
us.
what we deserve.
Aliens watching us stop us from doing something too
save
fucking
us.
stupid.
Stop us. Save us.
On that note,
Seriously.
don't forget, if you're liking what you're hearing and everything, to press that like button, maybe the subscribe button, leave a comment, you know, show us some love.
You know.
Lexi, what are we talking about this week?
Okay, so I'm really excited about this story. This is probably one of my favorite stories that I've ever heard. I originally heard it on My Favorite Murder, and it's a story of survival. And, you know, I'm going to somehow tie it back into Who Fucking Knows in a way. But this is the amazing survival story of Mary Vincent.
I just watched
Do you know this one?
I Survived episode of her.
Oh my god,
James
I just watched it too.
Hated me because I didn't give him any pretense. I was just like, let's just watch this. It's gonna be intense. And he's just like,
I fucking love I Survived. Oh, it's super intense.
Oh my God,
so
this is great.
Buckle up, ladies. Yeah. Okay, so mostly the notes, like, I know and I love this story, but I found a really well-written article that I'll be taking most of what I'm saying from, and that's from mamamia.com, which I'm like, oh my god, I love Mamma Mia. That's great. Okay, so here we go. So the year was 1978, and Mary Vincent had done what many teens had done before. She'd run away from home. So she was raised in Las Vegas, and she was a middle child of 7 children in a military family. She, you know, did normal 15-year-old girl things. She cut class, wore makeup, and she was a little bit rebellious. And then the day came one day when Mary's sister warned her that their father was on his way home with a migraine, and he was angry at Mary. So Mary kind of took that opportunity to flee home. Because I guess her father was kind of abusive. So at the time, Mary stayed with her boyfriend in Sausalito, California, and between nights sleeping rough with her boyfriend, and then she jumped to not sleeping with an uncle, but staying with an uncle in another small town in the area. And then on the morning of September 28th, she was trying to hitch a ride to Los Angeles to stay with her grandfather. So at the time, she was standing with 2 other hitchhikers. She was holding a sign that said, like, going to Los Angeles. And then a man in a blue van pulled up, and his blue van was empty, all except for a single bag. But when he pulled over, he claimed he only had room for one of them, and it was Mary. He said, "I only have room for you." And Mary ignored the warning signs of the other hitchhikers and she climbed in to the van. So here's a quote from her, and this is from her episode of I Survived, which you just watched. She says,
My screen
I
went
wasn't
black.
a daredevil. Yeah. Oh, wait, what?
Drink. Sorry.
Oh, your
screen went black. Okay.
Sorry to cut you off, but I was like, oh, it went black. Hey, seeing that that's the first time this entire time is really a great thing.
Pretty
so.
good. Yeah. Yes. Okay, so Mary climbs into the van, even though the other hitchhikers were warning her not to do it because it seemed sketchy. And here's a quote from her I Survived episode. She says, I wasn't a daredevil or anything. I was just desperate to get home. I could not live another day out and alone. I didn't think about what type of person he was or the situation. I was just tired. So yeah, Mary climbed into his van. She got comfortable. She took a nap. She woke up from her nap. And as she woke up, her eyes sort of began to focus, and they then fixed upon a road sign that rushed past the window of the van, and it looked different somehow. It felt wrong. So the fog of her sleep sort of lifted, and the 15-year-old realized that they were heading the completely wrong way of where she said she wanted to be heading. So she mustered the courage and turned to the driver, who was a kind of chubby, grandfatherly man, the man that picked her up that afternoon. And she said, look, you're going the wrong way. And you know you're going the wrong way. And he says, this is just an honest mistake. Nothing to worry about. And he'd just have to stop briefly to relieve himself, and then they would continue their journey to Los Angeles. So they drove for a short time, then the van peeled off the freeway down a side road that seemed to lead toward the canyon. And Mary's instincts sort of overpowered her. The area was isolated and the road was deserted, and that's when she realized that she was probably in trouble. But she thought to herself, I'm young, he's old, I'm healthy, he's not. She could outrun him, she could get away, she could get help. But she'd need to tie her hands loose. So she, at this point, also was tied in, like, a shoelace also.
Or was it her shoe was untied and she needed to tie her shoe?
Oh, maybe her shoe was untied. Yeah, I think her shoe was untied.
Okay. I was like, what?
Because she had to run. That makes way more sense. Okay, so they, like, pulled over and stopped. And he closed the door behind him, and she opened her door and bent down toward her foot because her shoelace was untied.
Got you.
Then came the blow of a sledgehammer. So I'm going to pop up some photos on OBS. The person that she got in the car with, his name was Lawrence Larry Singleton. And at the time, he was a 50-year-old merchant mariner with blue overalls, a bulging stomach, and a bulbous nose. So I'm going to show a picture of this fucking asshole just for a few seconds so you can see how gross he is. Fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy.
All right. Get off my screen. Yeah, fucking Larry. So he hit Mary Vincent twice with a sledgehammer, tied her hands, and then raped her in the back of his van. Then he climbed up to the front seat, still naked, and drove further down the road into the canyon, where he continued to just violently sexually assault her through the night, and also forced her to drink different liquors. So the hours passed, as you can imagine, very slowly. Mary was terrified and exhausted and in searing pain, and she pleaded with him over and over again to just set her free. And then she was like, I'm not going to tell anybody. So as the night and / early mornings continued on, he pulled out a hatchet and he said, you want to be free? I'll set you free. And then he swung his fucking hatchet. So first, he struck her left arm, severing it just below the elbow. And as he hacked at her right, she kicked him furiously and desperately, screaming for both help and in agony. And And in her I Survived episode, she says, I felt all the pain, the sharpness, the burning, and as the blood was leaking out of my body, I felt the hot ooze just flowing out of me. I felt everything. I was aware of everything.
And didn't she see her hand like clasped on his arm and no longer attached to her body?
Yes, that was another thing too. Yeah, she was holding on to him and he like fucking hatcheted off her arm. Ugh.
What a fucking
Stayed
asshole.
attached. Ugh.
I know.
It's so fucked. It's so fucked up, but she fucking survives.
She fucking survives. I know. And here's a little picture of her telling her story with her prosthetic arms, wiping away her tears. Oh. But so by the time he finished his attack, Mary was limp, but she was still conscious. But Lawrence didn't know that. He thought she was dead, and he dragged her body across the dirt and then flew her off a 9-meter cliff into like this sort of like dune thing. And really she should have died there. Half of the blood had left her body, and you know, she really wasn't in good shape. But Mary heard a voice, and she said she felt it, and she heard it in her mind and her heart and her soul, and the voice said, I can't go to sleep. He's going to do this to somebody else, and I can't let that happen. So she summoned the energy, and she rolled her elbows, her nub arms that were just freaking chopped off. She rolled them in the dirt, her wounds, and just to sort of stop the bleeding in any way that she could. And then she scrambled back up the fucking cliff to the road.
Without hands. Without
fucking hands. She's fucking amazing.
That's insane.
I know. And she heard like the sound of traffic that sort of guided her through the darkness. And she walked up there and she was naked and bleeding and covered in mud and dirt. And she was sort of walking with her arms raised. And this is a quote from her. And she did that so that the muscles and blood would not fall out. Yeah, so picture this. You're driving along the side of the road like at dawn, and you see a woman or a young girl covered in blood and dirt with no hands. Like, would you stop?
No.
Honestly, I don't know if I would stop.
If I was alone in my car, I wouldn't.
I'd be like, holy shit, it's a zombie. But yeah, so that happened to Mary. The exact same thing. Cars drove by and they just looked very scared. But then came her saviors, so 2 people on vacation who were lost. They pulled over and helped her into their truck and then raced to a phone to call the paramedics. And yeah, she fucking survived this whole ordeal. So here's a picture of Mary. Whoops, that's the wrong picture. This is the picture I want. Mary and her prosthetic arms surviving this entire crazy ordeal. So now really quick, I'll just go over the court case of it all. So in March 1979, a San Diego jury convicted Lawrence Singleton of kidnapping, mayhem, attempted murder, forcible rape, sodomy, and forced oral copulation. And his teenage victim, Mary, was there with her prosthetic arms. So here's a quote from Mary. When he was done testifying and I was leaving the courthouse, I had to pass him just inches away, and I heard him say, if it's the last thing I do, I will finish the job. So this fucking sicko, and here's the picture I was meaning to show earlier. That's them at the courthouse. So they had to sit in the same room together and testify. So this guy, fucking Singleton, was slapped with 14-year jail term, which was the maximum available in California at the time. But he only served 8 years and then was paroled for good behavior. So obviously the result sort of caused a lot of outrage, and it ended up changing the sentencing laws in California to 31 years. But again, it was too late for what I'm about to tell you. So this guy, Larry, is from Florida.
Fucking course.
And he went back there once he got out of jail. And he was then arrested again for stabbing a 31-year-old sex worker and a mother of 3, Roxanne Hayes. He stabbed her to death in 1997. And when police arrived, they found him standing over her body and his shirt was splattered in blood. So at the time, he was convicted and committed to death by Florida court. So he finally got the fucking justice that he deserved, but like also at what cost? He ended up killing someone else. So it's
the whole reason why she went through it and was like, no, I've got to fucking survive it so this guy can't do
because
this
she
again.
Wanted to. I know.
And it could have totally been avoided.
I don't understand why he would just get 14 years because it's like, or 8 or whatever, because it's just like he intended to kill her. There was no, like, he thought she was dead. He didn't
kill her.
Yeah, it's like, that's
so fucked up.
The intent to kill, and especially to that extent, that should be life. It's like, we're lucky that you didn't actually complete your task, but you were gonna do it.
It totally should have been. The fucking late 70s were a crazy time.
Was there any, jailhouse justice? Because he molested a young girl.
I know. Not that I could find in my research, not that I've heard of. That's unfortunate. But he did eventually, he died of cancer in 2001.
That's God being like...
Yeah.
That's not satisfying.
Yeah, I know. So Mary at this point is now in her 50s, and she's the mother of 2 sons. And she refers to Larry as her attacker. She doesn't use his name. The man who took her arms and her innocence and left her with very haunting and traumatic memories. And she kind of goes on to explain that she's broken bones due to her nightmares. She'll wake up in the middle of the night and like jump, and she's dislocated her shoulder or cracked ribs. But again, Larry did die in 2001 on death row of cancer. But she didn't really feel relief. And here's a quote from her. She says, "I needed to know what was in that dark soul of his. I felt I was robbed of that opportunity. Because of my sons, and I saw the relief on their faces, that made me realize, okay, that's good enough closure for me. I don't have to worry about my sons' lives anymore." So Mary now enjoys, or she finds hope in her art. She paints, and she loves her children and her faith. And in the second chance that she was given in such a face of like crazy evil. So here's a picture of Mary now painting, even though she doesn't have hands. And I'll leave you with this quote from her. She says, "I never knew there could be people like that in the world, and I pray to God I never know another." So that's the amazing survival story of Mary Vincent. Who fucking knows why this guy Larry is such a fucking sicko perv, and just like Mary should have died, really. But she didn't, which is just amazing.
That makes me...
I don't know what forces were at work, but it's just
so
incredible.
It makes me think, like, is that a guardian angel or something that we've gone over before of like being that voice, being that strength, and that like,
the voice that she heard
process of
like what was that,
stopping the blood and getting up the fucking canyon.
I know, like imagine shoving your like nuts into the dirt.
See, I would just
and then
would be like,
for her
it's
to...
my time.
I know, like I'm done.
So
I'm fucking done.
That's just,
Sorry,
I don't
Mom.
know. That's insane. Like, such freaking will and, like, determination to be able to...
Tenacity.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy.
It's pretty amazing.
I'm glad I'm not the one with the downer story this week, man.
Yeah,
I know.
Hey, at least
it's
she
a
lived.
downer story, but it's also incredible. She survived.
Yeah.
But at...
what cost? Damn,
It's
that's
such a
like...
cost.
I hate fucking people like that. I don't know.
I know.
There's too many fucking stories like that of people who got away with it, or like people who didn't survive. And
I know,
bastards like
he
that.
got away and then he did something horrible also. But
anyways,
well,
let's go.
yeah, that's what I have for you this week.
Well, I've got a little something more. It's still a true crime, and it's definitely in the era of who fucking knows. I actually had to call Lexy when I found this article because she covered the Watcher case, the Watcher house with the letters, and this sounded kind of similar to it, and I was like, fuck, did she do this? But she didn't, so I'm doing it. And I had just gotten done doing a bunch of work, so I half-assed the story this week for this, but I have a good mini-sode coming up before this episode comes out. But hey, that's where all the work went in today. Anyway, so I'm pretty much reading verbatim the medium.com. The title is called The Poison Pen. Who wrote the Circleville letters? Da-na-na-na. So we are in Ohio in the 1976 realm of the time of the world. And wow, I've been drinking. Oh, my screen went black.
She takes another sip. Oh, your screen went black?
Oh, drink.
So we're in Ohio, 1976. And this is how the article starts. Your home is your castle. Even though there is no way to keep yourself and your family completely safe, we all have a reasonable expectation of security and privacy within the walls of our own homes. Beginning in 1976, one small town in Ohio became gripped with fear when an unknown individual began mailing threatening and sexually explicit letters to residents. If you were raised in a small town, then you already know that there are no real strangers. Everybody just knows each other. But the person behind the poison pen that wrote the Circleville letters was too familiar with the goings-on of town folks, and for years, locals looked over their shoulder and wondered if they, too, would be targeted. More importantly, they wondered why regular people in a small town were in the letter writer's crosshairs. Ooh. Imagine you're quietly living your life, minding your own business. You go to work, you take care of your kids, you mow the lawn, you walk the dog. There's nothing particularly interesting about your life, certainly not more interesting than the average person's. Sure, you've got secrets. Open anyone's closet and you'll get smacked in the face with a skeleton or 5,000. But it's not like you're a serial killer. You don't have a meth lab in your backyard shed, or do you? At the end of the day, your baggage is your business, not an entire town's, right? One day you throw on a pair of slippers and mosey on out to your mailbox. Bills, bills, bills. Junk mail. Another credit card offered to decline. Wait. What's that envelope with the Columbus, Ohio postmark? You're not expecting anything. You pour yourself a cup of coffee and sit down at your kitchen table and rip open the mysterious envelope. You open the folded letter and suddenly your heart screeches to a halt. You can't quite catch your breath. Your stomach does a somersault and your hands start to tremble. You're being stalked. In 1976, Circleville residents started receiving oddly sinister handwritten letters in the mail. The troubled author knew details about their lives that he shouldn't have known and claimed... Screen went black.
Oh, God, I just took a sip.
The troubled author knew details about their lives that he shouldn't have known and claimed to be watching them, but one person in particular bore the brunt of the disturbing communications, which started to arrive in her mailbox in the summer of 1977. So it's been a year since the letters have been sent randomly to different residents, but this is the number one case that we're going to be going over. Mary Vincent, a school bus driver, was stunned when she opened a letter from an anonymous person accusing her of having an affair with Gordon Macy, the superintendent of the school district she worked for. The author warned Mary that she had been keeping an eye on her home, as well as her comings and goings. He knew she had a husband and children. He wrote and he demanded that she end the affair. So the first letter warned her to stop the affair with the superintendent, Macy. What did I say? Where is it? Massey. And so this is what it read. Oh, yep, that's the right one. Stay away from Macy. Don't lie when questioned about knowing him. I know where you live. I've been observing your house and know you have children. This is no joke. Please take it serious. Everyone concerned has been notified and everything will be over soon. And that's not all that the letter read. There was more, but that's kind of the most threatening part of it. Da-na-na-na. So, naturally, Mary was very horrified and kept the frightening letter from her husband, Ron, but she wasn't able...
Oh.
It went black. But she wasn't able to keep it under wraps for very long. Soon, Ron also received a letter from the mysterious author in which informed Ron of his wife's supposed affair with Macy. The letter writer warned Ron that if he didn't... Okay, I'm going to switch to this screen because this is annoying me now. It keeps going black. Okay.
Hey, drink!
The letter writer warned Ron that if he didn't inform the Westfall School Board of the affair, he would be killed. Those words undoubtedly turned Ron's world upside down, but when he confronted his wife, she denied having an affair.
But did she have an affair?
We'll see. The couple didn't know what to do. They didn't want rumors of an affair between Mary and Macy to spread around town, so they agreed to keep the letters to themselves for the time being. 2 weeks passed, and the Gillespie's were hopeful that there would be no more threatening letters, but the person behind the poison pen was far from done with his psychological torture. More letters arrived, this time threatening to go public about the alleged affair. If Mary didn't end her romp with Massey, the author promised to share the information via TV, CB, radio, and even erect billboards. And here is that letter right here. Defender, you are also a pick. Inform the school board on CBS posters, signs, billboards. Only picks ride motorcycles. Obviously, that's just a piece of it. The internet doesn't have the best when it comes to really long ago crimes and photos, but yeah, you got the gist of that.
Wait, what year was this again?
1977.
Okay.
Okay, Mary and Ron decided it was time to share what was happening to them, so they first went to Ron's sister, Karen, her husband, Paul, for sure, and Paul's sister. Mary had a gut feeling that a fellow bus driver was behind the letters. She told them he had come on to Mary and became angry when she rebuffed his advances. They decided that Paul would write a letter to Mary's coworker, David Longberry, telling him they knew it was him and insisting that he stop. When several weeks passed without any new letters, Ron and Mary Gillespie, along with Ron's family, breathed a collective sigh of relief. It appeared they had successfully put the fear of God into Mary's colleague, and he had gotten the message loud and clear. Instead, large signs started to appear around town claiming that Massey and the Gillespie's 12-year-old daughter were involved in a sexual relationship. Yeah. The escalation of the ferocious attacks terrified the family, and soon Ron was getting up extra early in the morning to drive around town and remove the signs before his daughter or his wife could spot them on their way to school/work.
What a dick.
Just
like
so
bringing the kids into it. That's like, if you're trying to prevent this to help the kids, as stated in the first message, like, you have kids and this is serious, that's fucked up.
Right? Like, I understand wanting to stop, like, a divorce from potentially happening, or, like, share the information with the husband so that could be solved and not as many harsh feelings, but, like, come on, that's just too much.
Yeah.
So on August 19th, 1977 was the last straw for Ron Gillespie. The phone rang and Ron answered. On the other end of the line was a sinister voice informing Ron that he knew what his truck looked like and where he lived. Ron believed he recognized the voice and became enraged. Grabbing his gun, he kissed his daughter goodbye and took off like a madman in his truck. A few short minutes later, Ron's truck was found crashed at the end of the street with Ron dead behind the wheel. When Sheriff Dwight Radcliffe examined Ron's gun, he realized that a single shot had been fired before the accident, but there was no evidence to suggest anyone had actually been shot at the site, and neither the bullet nor the casing was found. So here's a little clipping of the newspaper that said local man killed in a pickup crash. So the letter said that if he didn't come clean to the affair that his wife was having, that he would die. And he did die, but it was more of like, not a freak accident, but it's not like someone walked up and shot him. He crashed his car. But it seems that he shot someone, but that there's no evidence to support, like, who could have been possibly shot, what, and there's no, like, bullet or anything, which is really weird.
Mm-hmm.
So blood tests showed Ron's blood alcohol content was 0.16, twice over the legal limit. Sheriff Radcliffe, who originally believed foul play was involved, changed his mind based on the BAC finding and concluded Ron had died as a result of drunk driving accident. However, the Gillespie family didn't accept Sheriff Radcliffe's conclusion. Ron wasn't a drinker, they said. The man certainly had plenty of reasons to drink, considering the stress the whole family had been under, but that just wasn't Ron. Sheriff Radcliffe claimed a person of interest had been grilled about the odd nature in which Ron died, but he passed a polygraph test, so Sheriff Radcliffe dismissed him as a suspect. Ron's smashed pickup truck was disposed of in a junkyard in Ohio, thus eliminating any opportunity to study it further. Shortly after Ron's death, several Circleville residents began receiving more poison pen letters, this time accusing Sheriff Radcliffe of covering up the true nature of Ron Gillespie's death. Drink.
Oh. Okay. Sorry.
The screen
I
went
took
black.
a drink, right as you said drink. I'm a psychic.
Witch. Listen to our witch mini-sode if you want to get on the inside joke here.
Shameless plug.
So they couldn't study the car again because it was smashed up in the junkyard. Shortly after Ron's death, several Circleville residents began receiving more poison pen letters, this time accusing Sheriff Radcliffe of covering up the true nature of Ron Gillespie's death. The letters also accused the sheriff of mishandling an investigation into Pickaway County coroner Dr. Ray Carroll, who had been accused of sexual abuse by several children. Meanwhile, Mary's sister-in-law, Karen, and her husband, Paul, for sure, separated after Paul discovered his wife was cheating on him. So Mary was cheating on her husband, and her now dead husband's sister was cheating on her husband as well. Weird? I think so.
What? Is this just like a love hexagon or something? Or
Yeah.
what?
And so while Ron died before he could do anything in regards to the affair, Paul, that's his name, Paul decided, like, hey, I'm just going to go for the divorce. And he gained full custody of their children. And Karen moved out of the house and into a trailer in Mary Gillespie's backyard. So the barrage of threatening letters received by the Gillespie family started with a revelation. Quote, I know you're having an affair with the superintendent. Mary vehemently denied the allegations, but after Ron died, she admitted that she had, in fact, been having a fling with Gordon Massey. But, she claimed, the affair only started after she began receiving the letters, which makes no sense.
Yeah, this bitch is just trying to cover up her own, but nah, dude.
So the harassment continued, and more signs began appearing along the side of the road on Mary's bus route on February 7th, 1983. And so she got the first one in 77. So this is 6 years after the first letter and her husband dying and everything.
Damn.
After 6 years, she finally decided she'd had enough. She hopped out of her bus and went to grab one of the signs, but this was no ordinary sign. A box was attached to the pole holding the sign, and inside of it was a small pistol. The gun was part of a booby trap designed to fire when the sign was pulled a certain way. Fortunately for Mary, she didn't pull the sign the right way, and the gun never went off. So it was intended to kill whoever pulled it out of the ground.
Wow.
When the police examined the gun, they were able to trace it back to none other than Paul for sure, Mary's ex-brother-in-law. So the sister Karen, who's living on her property, that the old sister, current sister-in-law, because it's her dead husband's sister, living on her property, her husband, ex-husband, it's his gun. Sorry, that was a lot of words. I'm kind of seeing a lot of people right now. Anyway, drink. So
drink.
Yeah, why not? So while Karen was living on Mary's property, she shared her suspicions that her ex-husband might have been behind the threatening letters, phone calls, and signs. Mary took the information to Sheriff Radcliffe, who called Paul into the station, where he had him try and copy the handwriting in the letters. He also had Paul write down words and phrases as he spoke them. Then Sheriff Radcliffe asked Paul to show him where he normally kept his gun. Once in Paul's garage, Paul showed Sheriff Radcliffe where he normally kept his pistol and explained that had been stolen once before. The two men then went to the county courthouse where Paul was arrested and charged with the attempted murder of Mary Lexy. On October 24th, 1983, Paul for sure went on trial. While he wasn't charged with writing the letters, they became crucial pieces of evidence against him. Still, only 39 of the letters were allowed into evidence. I have no idea how many letters actually were allowed, were written, but only 39 of them went into evidence.
It's still a lot of letters. 39. Yeah. Damn.
Have I even received 39 letters in my life?
That is a lot. I've never...
I've switched to beer. I'm sorry, friends. Your ears are going to be murdered by my
We
burps.
know what happens when Taylor drinks beer.
That's very true. I want to add another image really quick because this one's a good one that I want to have. Oh, screen went black.
Oh, I guess we drink. I just took a drink.
Okay. A handwriting expert took the stand to tell the jury that the handwriting in the letters matched Paul's. Mary also took the stand and testified that she started to believe the letters were written by Paul after Karen shared her own suspicions with her. And Karen could just be motherfucking, hateful, mad that he divorced her, even though she had the goddamn affair, but I don't know how much I trust Karen. Anyway. Although Paul's boss testified that Paul wasn't at work that day, he still had a solid alibi for most of the day and never took the stand in his own defense. He would go on to kick himself for not testifying, as in the end, he was convicted of attempted murder. And here's a photo of them at the courthouse during the trial. He is the gentleman on the far right side with his hand claps together with kind of a I guess this is my life right now expression on his face. Years later, he said, quote, I can't blame the jury because the jury didn't hear all the evidence, but I just couldn't believe it. I was really in shock. Paul received the maximum sentence for the crime, 7 to 25 years. Everyone in Circleville assumed that with Paul behind bars, the frightening letters would stop. Well, they were wrong. So terribly wrong. So the residents of Circleville and surrounding areas finally started to feel safe again when the prison door slammed behind Paul for sure, but the relief was short-lived. It seemed nothing could stop the poison pen from scribbling hate-filled diatribes against locals. I totally did not say that right, but who cares?
A for effort.
The letters didn't stop. They didn't even slow down. They also grew more bizarre and disturbing. Said author and journalist Martin Yount. They were being received all over a large area of central Ohio, so a lot of people couldn't understand how Paul for sure could be mailing all these letters from prison. The new batch of letters included allegations about the prosecutor in the case, Roger Klein. The letter writer also promised to dig up the grave of a deceased baby and mail the bones to the police if they didn't look into Klein for allegedly playing a role in the murder of a pregnant schoolteacher. According to the letter writer, Klein had impregnated the teacher and then had her killed. The prison was just as mystified as everyone else. The staff had done everything they could think to do to keep Paul from writing and sending the letters. When checking all of his ingoing and outgoing mail didn't stop the letters, Paul was placed in solitary confinement with nothing to write on or with, but the letters kept coming. The prison warden concluded that there was no way Paul could have been writing the letters. Paul himself received a letter that read, "Now when you are going to believe you aren't going to get out of there. I told you 2 years ago. When we set them up, they stay set up. Don't you listen at all?" So it's kind of like broken English right now, but
wait,
there's
when
more
we
words
set
here.
them up, they stay set up?
Yeah, like I set you up and they refuse to believe any other possible outcome, even though you can't be sending these letters right now. Like they still believe you're the person fucking doing this shit. So I set you up, you stay set up for life. So Paul was a model prisoner for 7 years, but when he became eligible for parole, the board rejected his request because people were still receiving harassing letters. It didn't matter that the prison warden had concluded it would have been impossible for Paul to send them. It didn't matter that the letters were postmarked Columbus even when Paul was in prison in Lima. Paul Forshaw remained in prison even after a witness came forward to say that approximately 20 minutes before Mary discovered the booby trap sign along the road, another bus driver saw a yellow El Camino parked at the very same intersection. Next to the car stood a large man with sandy hair who turned around and acted like he was going to the bathroom when he spotted the bus driver observing him. The man didn't resemble Paul Forshaw in any way, yet the police did absolutely nothing to follow up on this tip. Finally, in May 1994, after spending 10 years in prison, Paul was paroled. He maintained his innocence the entire time he was incarcerated and continued to maintain his innocence until his death in 2012 at the age of 70. Interestingly, the letters also stopped in 94 when he was released. So
interesting.
I have a little inference of kind of what could have been that why he got implicated. So, Mary was the main person being harassed. The whole town's being harassed, but it was mainly Mary, right? And then her sister-in-law, Karen, came in and was just all like, let's get rid of our husbands. And okay, husband number 1 got killed or died from a car crash. Husband number 2, who took the kids and the house and kicked her out, all rightfully so because she was cheating on him, ends up in prison for doing all these letters and everything, even though none of it makes sense for it to be happened that way. He didn't do it. Yeah, he spent 10 years in prison because of it. Weird. I don't know.
So do you think the sister-in-law was the letter writer who was I don't know, because that had a big part to, when the letter said, I set you up and you set up, you stayed set up?
I think there are multiple letter writers, and I think they might be one of them. Either collectively or each of them own themselves, or if they started it or whatnot. I believe they have something to do with the letter writing, or at least altering or perceiving the case to be the ex-husband who got the kids in the house, that he was the one who did it. So, as I was saying, the letter writer sent hundreds and hundreds, possibly thousands and thousands upon letters over the years. And some of the things, the majority of the things that he stated and called people out of didn't actually surmount to anything, but some of them did. And he seemed to be correct. The letter writer seemed to be correct about a Pickaway County coroner, Ray Carroll. He had been accused of sexually abusing several children, and the letter writer posted. I don't know. Okay, so he had
Drink.
He had been accused of sexually abusing several children, and the letter writer said that the sheriff Radcliffe had mishandled the case. In December of 93, Dr. Carroll was charged with 12 counts, 8 of them alleging the doctor of gross immorality, sex crimes, corruption of a minor, pornography, obscenity, and indecent exposure. Remember David Longberry, the co-worker who came on to Mary? Mary and Ron initially suspected he might be the Circleville letter writer. Well, Longberry forcibly raped an 11-year-old girl in 99 and became a fugitive on the run. Now, the same source that said Roger Klein did, in fact, murder a pregnant school teacher also stated that Longberry committed suicide while he was on the run. However, there was a little bit digging done, and there wasn't much information about Longberry. The person who wrote this article found public records directory that stated that Longberry was still on the run as of 2005. And so, some of these things were right, and then nothing was proven in the sorts of Longberry, but he did disappear and was just whoop, I'm skipping town, don't mind me, type of thing, right? So when Paul Forshaw got out of prison, he started his own website in which he lays out the case for his innocence and addresses numerous conspiracy theories surrounding the letters. I have a hard time taking the content of Forshaw's site seriously, and here's why. Under the heading, Facts That Can Be Confirmed, Forshaw writes, quote, I believe that the obscene, threatening, and dangerous letters were concealed because they would interfere with Sheriff Radcliffe becoming the National Sheriff's Association president. See the date of the letters and the date of his involvement with the National Sheriff's Association. The crime rate in Pickaway County at the time would have eliminated him from this appointment. Instead of it being a fact that can be confirmed, it's little more than Fashir's opinion. Starting out with, I believe, isn't a great way to prove something. There are other downloadable documents on his thing. Let's see. There was a book written about them. And there's a lot of conjecture of who could it be, but the very end of it all is it's still unsolved. Paul was only convicted of trying to kill Mary, and the letters are what was like, yeah, he did it, like, look at how his handwriting was, but it didn't conclude that he was at least a writer when he was in prison type of thing. So who fucking knows who the writer or writers are, why they did it, and why they stopped and all this shit. It's just a weird fucking weirdness surrounded this entire town for so long, and it still got away with it. Like, what the fuck?
Crazy.
That's crazy. What if, like...
It's still unsolved?
Mm-hmm.
What if Paul really was the letter writer at first and did kind of expose his sister-in-law's affair, and meanwhile his wife was kind of aware of everything that was going down? She kind of was married to this kind of like sadistic dude and had an affair, and then when he left her and took everything of his, she was like, do you know what, I'm gonna get him with his own fucking medicine, and like knew his handwriting and kind of did the letters, knew where his gun was, so set him up and got her like the person who he ruined the life of. And
good theory there. But there's a whole Reddit stream of theories, and since I already talked so long, I decided not to include any of them, but definitely hop on to Reddit. There's some fun conversations going on about the case, but who fucking knows? Who fucking knows?
Who fucking knows? That was a good who fucking knows, back to our roots, unsolved.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Angela, are you going to read the oracle for us?
Yes, I am. Let me grab that very quick. For those of you who don't listen to us regularly, at the end of every full episode, I pull an oracle card from my oracle deck. Take it as you will. It could be in terms of this episode, in terms of today, maybe this week, or maybe you're just going through something this last month and you needed some kind of sign or answer. That's what this is going to be. So I'm going to pull the card now.
I saw a sign.
It is look at the bigger picture. And it's full moon in Sagittarius. So let's see. What are your guys' signs for like Aquarius, Leo. I'm a Virgo. So this has to do with Sagittarius. I don't know if anyone's listening is a Sagittarius or knows a Sagittarious.
What date is Sagittarius? Do you know off the top of your head?
I do not.
Okay, me neither. Some witches we are.
I'm a bad witch. Oh, fuck.
Yeah, study up. Look at the bigger picture. Are you thinking too much about the details of your dilemma? Fretting over the minute can be counterproductive. Or perhaps you're being all talk and no action. This card is a reminder that while it's good to think things through, sometimes you need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. What do you see then? What do you then see about your current situation? What's the most positive thought you can have about it? Now is the time to count your blessings, even if you don't yet know exactly what you want. This card is also a reminder that we often have to take a few risks and go with uncertainty on this journey called life. Try to keep an open mind about what's for the best. The universe could surprise you. Attuned to the Moon says, take time out for a mini break or adventure. Additional meanings for this card: this situation may have come around because you've been distracted. Be confident without being overconfident to win the day. Have you shown that you care? If not, now is the time. Finding a balance between speaking your mind and saying too much.
I'm always on the verge of that. Right on.
I like it.
I'm glad we could leave you with some wise words of oracle reading cards and everything like that. Look at the big picture, y'all.
Yeah. And look at our pictures on Instagram.
Yeah.
Shameless plug.
Good plug.
At WFK knows. Taylor has been taking over our social media, and she's been doing a great job posting hints and little knickknacks that kind of show us a little bit more personally on our stories and stuff. So check that out and DM us any stories that you might have personally so we can read them at the beginning of the episode like we did today.
And, you know, we really like free money, and we have a Patreon who F***KEN knows, and, you know, just throw us a few bucks, you know. I'm not gonna lie, I love them tips. Well, stay tipsy, y'all. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.